Hey there, happy Wednesday. Welcome back to the College Basketball Bracket Science Podcast, your encyclopedia for the college basketball season. We're officially less than 7 weeks away from college basketball, just about a month and a half. Today we're talking about the Big East in our new preview series. We have 11 teams to go over today. We'll go over some power rankings, first team all Big East, preseason prediction, and of course, some of the odds for each team to win the conference, the regular season conference. Of course, providing some intel on some of the best bets you can place in the preseason, along with some intel on what you can expect for some of the other teams in relation to the Big East. If you haven't done so already, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, stay updated on college basketball all season long. Follow us on social media at Bracket Science with 2 S's while checking out our website, bracketscience.org. Science only has 1 S in our website, bracketscience.org. Early access to our content. We already released our Big East preview on there 2 days before the time that this podcast is released. Many short blogs on there, important information, best bets, whole lot of good stuff going on the website. Go check it out. Join our new Discord. We're going to be conversating all day on there. Not right now, but once the college basketball season starts, get prepared. Join the Discord. Link is below. We're going to have some hot take arguments. We're going to post a lot of our picks in there, so you're going to want some of that to make a little bit of some money. Let's dive into the poll of the day. Will Dan Hurley, of course, we're talking Big East, got to talk about Dan Hurley. Will Dan Hurley be a top 3 coach of all time if UConn wins the national title this year? I think you obviously got to put John Wooden number 1, then take your pick of who you want number 2. Maybe you think it's Coach K. Maybe you think it's Roy Williams, depending on where you stand in that rivalry. Who do you think? Could it be Dan Hurley if he wins the national title this year? Vote below in the poll, yes or no. Now let's dive into the trivia question of the day.
Trivia time!
All right, so we know it's been UConn and Villanova in the Big East recently. Before UConn and Villanova, who was the last Big East team to win a national title? The hint is they are no longer in the Big East. Before UConn and Villanova, who was the last Big East team to win a national title? Not in the conference anymore. All right, before we dive into the team by team and Beej's breakdown, let's first give a quick shout out to our newest partner, SoBet. SoBet is a new betting platform that allows you to see professional bettors' picks. There is no hiding their record, so if they're up money, you're going to know. If they're down money, you're going to know. All their stats are for the public to see. Once you start getting into SoBet, you can start posting picks on your own. If you get to the top of the page of you're making the most money out of anyone, you can create a VIP channel and eventually start making money off of your picks. So go down below, check the link in the description, join and start your betting adventure today. Of course, bet responsibly. All right, let's dive into a little bit of Beej's breakdown.
It's time for Beej's Breakdown.
All right, so the big news in college basketball was the Pac-12 is back. Washington State and Oregon State will be back in the conference. Remember, they're going to be in the WCC this upcoming year. Looks like this is going to start in 2026. Boise State, Colorado State, Fresno State, San Diego State, all going from the Mountain West into the Pac-12. The Pac-12's brand still just seems, even though it's not a conference right now, it still just seems to mean a little bit more than the Mountain West brand. God love the Mountain West, but we saw it in this offseason. A lot of those players all kind of transferred up to the power major or the high major level, Power 5. It's tough. It's tough break for the Mountain West, but the Pac-12, I think it's good news in general that we're going to have the Pac-12 back in business. It will not be great news if they continue the Pac-12 network, but Pac-12 is back, so it's brought in a lot of question on who the next couple teams might be because they need 8 teams to be a legal FBS conference in terms of football. So they're going to need 2 more schools. Who will they go after? Don't be surprised if they go after UNLV. Also in the Mountain West, I've heard also talks of Memphis. So bear in mind, they still need 2 more schools, but this is the start, this 6. We'll see what they do going forward. All right, let's dive into the Big East. This is what we're here to talk about today. So obviously, the top dogs in the Big East has been UConn. Back-to-back national championships. After that, I'd say it's been Creighton, Marquette, and Xavier in any way that you want. I know Xavier had a down year last year. It's been those schools. What if I were to tell you the Big East has produced the national championship the national champion in 4 of the 8 previous years. Absolutely incredible. Villanova was that team, remember, in 2016 and 2018. And then obviously UConn the past 2 seasons. UConn the first team to do this since Florida in 2006, 2007. UConn is definitely the face of the Big East right now, but they are also the face of college basketball, them led by Dan Hurley. Marquette, Creighton, and Xavier, we already talked about. I know you're going to say, what about Xavier? Xavier missed the tournament last year. Yeah, Xavier had some injury problems last year, but the year before, they were a 3 seed in March Madness. So it's been those 3 schools right below the tier of UConn. Definitely Marquette and Creighton the past 2 years, and throw Xavier in that conversation as well. The fault of the Big East, why it is not ranked number 1, 2 in the KenPom final rankings, has been because of the bottom feeders, specifically DePaul and Georgetown. DePaul and Georgetown have been significantly worse than the schools, even just slightly ahead of them in the power rankings. If they're 10 and 11, the 9th best team has been significantly better than DePaul and Georgetown. But there's been coaching changes going on at both DePaul and Georgetown. DePaul brought in Coach Chris Holtmann from Ohio State, recently fired from Ohio State. Georgetown brought in Ed Cooley last year to come in. Year 1 didn't go well. Year 2 should be better. With this being said, at the top, it is UConn's conference until proven otherwise. It is UConn's conference to win. Expect Marquette, Creighton, Xavier to be at the top once again, along with the improved Rick Pitino's St. John's squad. All right, let's get into a team-by-team breakdown of all 11 teams. In alphabetical order, let's start with Butler. 3rd year under Coach Thad Matta, also previously at Ohio State. Remember, Chris Holtmann took over for Thad Matta. The Butler program was obviously just a powerhouse back in the day under Brad Stevens. Brad Stevens took them to 2 straight national championships in the Horizon League. Absolutely unheard of. And then when Chris Holtmann was there, Chris Holtmann also did a spectacular job. He got them to the tournament every year. But then Laval Jordan took over and just lost all momentum for the program. Then Thad Matta at Ohio State brought in, recovered a lot of the momentum. He hasn't got to the NCAA tournament yet in the 2 years. He's been close. He was close last year. But this year, looking ahead, they seem to have some sneaky upside. They're kind of flying under the radar right now because, as mentioned, it's those top 5 teams. It's UConn, Marquette, Creighton, St. John's, and Xavier. Butler kind of flying under the radar. Can they get back to the powerhouse that they used to be? We'll see. I expect them to be towards the middle of the Big East this year. Their projected starting 5 looks like this. Guard, Colby King. Guard, Pierre Brooks. Guard, Jameel Telfort. Forward, Patrick McCaffrey. Remember the transfer from Iowa. And at center, Andre Screen. They picked up Colby King and Patrick McCaffrey in the portal. Andre Screen will be forced into a bigger role this year. Jameel Telfort and Pierre Brooks were both on Butler last year. 2 of their better players with them back. This roster is not bad. This roster is not bad. Will this be the year Butler gets back in? It'll be close. Expect them to be right around the bubble. Next up is the UConn Huskies. What else can you say about the UConn Huskies? They are incredible. As mentioned, on top of the college basketball world, maybe even the basketball world. If they were to do it, as mentioned in our poll question, if they were to win 3 national championships this year, which is just unheard of in this day and age, it will be the first team to do that since UCLA, who did it in the late 60s, early 70s. UConn does go into this new year losing 4 of their 5 starters, all to the NBA. Remember, yes, that's how stacked that team was last year. Alex Karaban, the lone starter returning, he's going to be forced into a big role, along with previous bench pieces forced into bigger roles. Hassan Diarra will be the starting point guard for the defending national champions. He was the 6th man last year. He was the 6th man of the year in the Big East last year. He'll have a huge role along with Samson Johnson. He'll be thrown into the starting role. The Huskies did get some help in the portal. They added at St. Mary's Aiden Mahaney, sharpshooter, also center from Michigan. Terrace Reed, who will look to back up Samson Johnson, is what it looks like. They also added superstar freshman Liam McNeely. This might be what elevates their ceiling even higher. This freshman Liam McNeely, really good, was getting recruited by Indiana heavily, ended up going to Dan Hurley's system at UConn. The Huskies lineup looks a lot different this year. That is exactly what we said last year, and they were incredible last year. So all those names mentioned, that will be the starting lineup. Guard Hassan Diarra, guard Aiden Mahaney, forward Liam McNeely, forward Alex Caravan, forward Samson Johnson, forward/center Samson Johnson. Now these lineups are predictions. That's what I'm expecting. Some may say Liam McNeely may not start. But other names to note, Solomon Ball, Jalen Stewart, they will be those bench guys who are also looking to make big improvements this year. Maybe one of them can squeeze into the starting lineup, along with Michigan transfer Terrace Reed. All right, let's move on to Creighton. Creighton has absolutely made a living towards the top of the Big East standings under Coach Greg McDermott. From the days where his son was there setting all kinds of records, Creighton has been a dog in the Big East. Creighton received a 3 seed in last year's March Madness, made it to the Sweet 16, eventually got beat by the Dalton Connect Tennessee Volunteers. Creighton's had one of the best big three in all of college basketball last year. Baylor Shireman, Trey Alexander, Ryan Kalkbrenner, put those three up against just about anyone in the country, and they would compete with them. Shireman and Alexander gone for this upcoming season, both going to the NBA. Leaves Ryan Kalkbrenner in for a huge season, it looks like. Creighton also returns Stephen Ashworth and Mason Miller from the starting lineup. Both are going to be huge on determining whether this team is going to be legit or not. Stephen Ashworth was kind of forced into that he was the fourth man, which was perfect for him. He's a sharpshooter. This year he's going to be the point guard. He's going to be bringing the ball up. We're going to see if he can make that tremendous step. And Mason Miller just kind of filled out that 5 spot last year. Just was kind of a body out there. In the transfer portal, Creighton added Texas Tech's Pop Isaacs, Arizona State's Jemiah Neal. That will fill out the starting lineup along with Mason Miller, Stephen Ashworth, and Ryan Kalkbrenner. They got a tremendous freshman class coming in, the best in Creighton history. The lineup, quite frankly, doesn't look as good to me as it did last year for Coach Greg McDermott. But under Coach Greg McDermott, the floor is always high. This is always a tournament team. I expect Creighton to be in the 2 to 5 range in the Big East. Their projected starting 5, as mentioned, Stephen Ashworth, Pop Isaacs, Jemiah Neal as the guards, forward Mason Miller, and center Ryan Kalkbrenner. Ryan Kalkbrenner, the name to know if you're new to college basketball this year. All right, let's talk about DePaul. DePaul, to say this as an understatement, has been the worst Power 5 team by far over the past couple years. We did the ACC preview last week. We talked about Louisville, how just absolutely pathetic it was under Coach Kenny Payne. DePaul has been worse. DePaul was in the 300s of KenPom at the end of the season last year. There's 360 teams. Usually, if you're a power conference team, if you're below 200, it is absolutely pathetic. They were in the 300s. They went 3-29 overall, 0-20 in conference play last year. It was obvious. It was time to make a coaching change, decide to try something different. They got Chris Holtmann, who, as I mentioned, was fired in the middle of the season last year from Ohio State. With this being said, I know you're thinking he got fired somewhere. He can't be that great. This is the best coach DePaul could get. By far, too. This was a tremendous hire. Chris Holtmann, as we mentioned at Butler, was proven. He was making the tournament year after year, getting good seeds. Didn't work out at Ohio State running a huge brand like that. But at DePaul, this seems like just a perfect hire. I thought Chris Holtmann was going to maybe get into some broadcasting or something like that, or even maybe just take a year or two away from the game. Nope, he's right back at it at DePaul. This should be good for him, kind of resurrect his career. I mean, you're not expected to win at DePaul, but it's a chance to build something from the ground. He'll be the best coach they have had in a very, very long time. Holtmann went to the mid-major ranks to put together a completely new roster, as he should have. Get rid of just about everyone from that roster last year. Now, I don't think DePaul is going to be competitive, but they're going to be better than they were last year. They might put up a fight at home against a couple of these middle teams in the Big East. I think they'll win a game. They should win a game, maybe a game or two. If they win 3 games, it is a successful season. I can say that that's where the DePaul program is at. They will definitely be the favorite to finish last in the program, but they're on the up. They're looking good for DePaul fans. Their projected starting 5 looks like this: at guard, Jacob Meyer; at guard, Isaiah Rivera; at guard, Troy D'Amico; at forward, J.J. Traynor; and at forward, David Skogman. It's on the up, DePaul. You're going to get there. Moving on from one disappointing team to another, the Georgetown Hoyas. It seems like forever ago John Thompson had Georgetown towards the top of the sport. Remember, they were a 2 seed. They got beat by who did they get beat by in that tournament? Missouri lost to Norfolk State. They get beat by Middle Tennessee. Who was it where they were the 2 seed and got beat? Something like that. Someone fact checked. Following John Thompson, though, Patrick Ewing stepped in. Yes, the legend New York Knick Patrick Ewing stepped in. Seemed like perfect, right? Went to Georgetown from that area. Stepped in. Just an absolutely horrible coach. Great player, horrible coach. Ewing ran the Georgetown program from the top of the sport to the bottom. It was Kenny Payne-like, but not that extreme. In 2021-22, Georgetown went 0-19 in conference play, then 2-18 the following year in what would be Ewing's last season. Georgetown then moved on to former Providence coach Ed Cooley to try and pick up these pieces, which was last year. It didn't go well. They went 9-23 overall, 2-18 in the Big East. They only beat DePaul in the Big East, quite frankly. But with that being said, year 2 should be better than year 1. Their roster looks like they have a little bit more upside. I'm not saying they have high upside. Don't think I'm saying that whatsoever. It looks a lot better than it did last year, though. They brought in Malik Mack from Harvard, good scorer. They also brought in Micah Peavy from TCU, 2 proven players. They got some hope. The roster still does not look good. It's not great. Once again, I think they will be closer to the pack, along with DePaul, than they were last year. I think they'll win more than 2 games, maybe 3 or 4, but it still seems they're going to be pretty far down, and this is going to be a continue to build kind of year. So they're projecting starting 5 looks like this. At guard, Malik Mack from Harvard. At guard, Jaden Epps, formerly at Illinois, but he was with Georgetown last year. At guard, Curtis Williams. At forward, Micah Peavy. And at forward, Drew Fielder. All right, let's move on to Marquette. Marquette got to the Sweet 16 last year. Remember that? For the first time under Coach Shaka Smart. Very emotional Shaka Smart once they made the Sweet 16. They did end up getting upset by NC State, who was beating everybody. It was the second straight 2 seed for Marquette. They've showed nice consistency under Shaka Smart. Marquette is one of the 2 Power 5 schools in the entire country who did not make an addition in the transfer portal. Not one, just them and Purdue did not add 1 person during the transfer portal. Now Marquette loses key guys, Tyler Kolek, Oso Ighodaro, but retains all the other contributors from last year's team. Now, as we mentioned, I know there's been a lot of controversy on do you vote Marquette ahead of Creighton? Do you vote Creighton ahead of Marquette? I have Marquette ahead of Creighton right now in terms of my rankings for this sole reason. Creighton is going to be filling in guys that have never been in the system before. Marquette is going to fulfill their roster with guys who have been in the system because it seems like the same thing, right? Creighton's losing Baylor Shireman and Trey Alexander. Marquette's losing Oso Ighodaro and Tyler Kolek. Marquette retains Cam Jones. Creighton retains Ryan Kalkbrenner. Both will probably be preseason All-Americans. So it's kind of similar, but I trust the guys that stayed back with Marquette a little bit more than I trust those guys at Creighton, which is why I have Creighton ahead. As mentioned, Cam Jones, he will be the guy. He may average a ton. He's going to score a lot of baskets this year. Trust me on that one. He actually led the team in scoring last year. I know Tyler Kolek was the star. Oso was kind of also in that star role. This year it's going to be Cam Jones. Marquette, just like Creighton, made a living towards the top of the Big East. They should be there again this year. Their starting lineup looks like this. They get Stevie Mitchell at the guard. He is back for another year. We mentioned Cam Jones. Chase Ross at guard, also back for another year. David Joplin at forward, back for another year. And so is Ben Gold at the center position. They bring back a lot of pieces that contributed from last year's team. Watch out for Marquette's defense this year. Their defense should be really good this year. Moving on, let's talk about Providence. Providence was a consistent player in the NCAA tournament under Ed Cooley. Remember, we mentioned Ed Cooley left to go to Georgetown. This brought in Kim English as the head coach of the Providence Friars. Year 1 under Kim English was not supposed to go very good. It was kind of just seen as a rebuild year. Maybe you go right around 500. This idea was vivid. It was very easily seen as soon as Bryce Hopkins got hurt. Bryce Hopkins was supposed to be their best player. He was their best player at the time. Tore his ACL, stayed it out for the season. Then it was just like, all right, let's rebuild. Let's get a system going under Kim English. That went away immediately as Devin Carter just popped off. Devin Carter out of nowhere, knocking down 30-foot jump shot. I mean, he's knocking down 30-foot threes, 30-foot buzzer beaters. Who was that against? It was incredible. He ended up being a lottery pick. He literally went from the second thought in the offense to a lottery pick in one season. Terrific defender. Ended up being the Big East Player of the Year. Devin Carter was spectacular. Providence was around the bubble all year. They got ranked for a little bit. They did end up missing the NCAA tournament. But looking forward to this season, we're just kind of going to go back to what we were at the beginning of last season. They lose Devin Carter, as mentioned, ended up being a lottery pick, but they bring back Hopkins. Hopkins will be back this year. And they added some decent pieces in the transfer portal. I think they're going to be somewhere around the bubble right again. I think they should be. But if they continue to improve under Kim English, they might be back in the tournament this year. Their projected starting five looks like this. At guard, Jaden Pierre. At guard, Bensley Joseph, the transfer from Miami. At forward, Bryce Hopkins. At forward, Jabri Abdul-Rahim. And at center, Chris Esendoko. Moving on, let's talk about Seton Hall. Seton Hall, the defending NIT champs. Yes, they won the NIT last year. Seton Hall was the team that suffered the most from the bid stealers last year. Oregon winning the Pac-12. New Mexico winning the Mountain West, NC State winning the ACC. This killed Seton Hall, or Seton Hall would have been in the tournament and could have been a sneaky pick to go far in the tournament. They won the NIT, as mentioned, and then it was pretty evident that Seton Hall deserved a spot in the NCAA tournament. Shaheen Holloway, absolutely spectacular job. He was the guy who took St. Peter's to the Elite Eight. He came into Seton Hall and he's a phenomenal coach. What else can you say about him? He is a great coach. The only thing unfortunate for Seton Hall seems to be the NIL budget. It seems they do not have a lot of money. It really hurt them when they couldn't keep star All-American candidate Kadari Richmond. He went to the transfer portal, and to make it even worse, stayed in conference to their rival St. John's. That's tough. Tough loss for Seton Hall. They struggled to bring in some high-end talent. As mentioned, they don't have that much money. With that being said, though, they put together a decent team. It's a solid team. Like last year's team shouldn't have been that good, and they were. They were very good. Holloway, Richmond, just internal development, very good. It's kind of a team of highly regarded prospects, so there is some talent there who just haven't gotten that opportunity yet, you know. This will be the chance this year under Seton Hall, under Shaheen Holloway. Players love him. Coaches love him. Everyone loves Shaheen Holloway. It's definitely a bottom-end roster in terms of the Big East. With Holloway at the helm, you can't really bet against him. It seemed to be a bottom-end roster last year. There's some potential to have another good season. Hopefully they can get back in the big dance. Their projected starting five looks like this. Guard Dylan Adewusu. He is back. He was at Seton Hall last year. At guard, Isaiah Coleman. At forward, Scotty Middleton, the transfer from Ohio State. At forward, Prince Aligbe. And at forward, Yassine Toomey. Also on the roster as their sixth man will be coming over from Providence is I'm totally blanking on his name right now. I'm so sorry. I can't think of what his name is. He's a tremendous player. Look up Providence transfer to Seton Hall. I can't remember what his name is. I'm blanking right now. I'm thinking Wesley Yates, but he's the one who transferred from Washington. I can't remember. It'll come back to me in a little bit here. Well, before we make this a disaster even further, let's get into St. John's. Let's talk about St. John's, the Rick Pitino-led St. John's Johnnies. They were on the bubble for most of the year last year. A lot of people had them in. They didn't end up getting into the tournament under the first season under Rick Pitino. Pitino built a pretty good foundation. I mean, he's a tremendous coach. I know some of the off-court issues are Garway Duel. That's the guy's name that transferred in. He's going to be at Seton Hall next year. Garway Duel from Providence. Sorry, just came back to me. All right, St. John's, I'll give you your time. This looks like the year. This looks like the year that St. John's makes that big jump. Johnny's brought in Kadari Richmond, as we already mentioned. He may be an All-American this year. They also brought in Devin Smith from Utah. Devin Smith and Kadari Richmond put him up against just about anyone in the country. Tremendous, tremendous backcourt. Devin Smith is one of the fastest guys in college basketball, if not the fastest guy in college basketball, transfer from Utah. Kadari Richmond's just spectacular all the way around, triple-double machine. They also bring in Aaron Scott from North Texas and Vincent Iwuchukwu from USC. Heavy transfer lineup. I know some people don't like that. RJ Lewis and Simeon Wilcher are also back for another year under St. John's. They're experienced, they're talented, they're good. They're a good team. Under the helm of Rick Pitino, anything's possible with this team. Expect them towards the top of the Big East. I think this roster's too good a coach, too much experience. This team's going to be good. If you think Arkansas is going to be good, I think this is a similar-ish team to Arkansas. Maybe not as talented, but I think I trust Rick Pitino a little more than John Calipari, quite frankly. This team's going to be good. St. John's, watch out for them. Let's move on to Villanova. Got a lot to talk about with Villanova because what is happening over at Villanova? They were on top of the college basketball world, as we mentioned in the intro, under Jay Wright. National champions in 2016, 2018. Now they're just, every year you're just like, man, that team's disappointing under Kyle Neptune. It was a surprising retirement from Jay Wright at the end of the 2022 season, which kind of just forced Kyle Neptune into a big spot. I heard they were lacking a little bit of money. Jay Wright maybe wanted to get out because of the money. I don't know. The first year under Neptune was very disappointing. Villanova missed the NCAA tournament for the first time in 10 years. All right, you get a pass at your first season. Year two was even more disappointing. They had a talented roster. Villanova remember at the beginning of the year last year, they were ranked like in the teens. They won the battle for Atlantis, beat North Carolina, and everyone's like, wow, yeah, Villanova's back. This is a potential Final Four team, potential national championship team. And then it just dropped off a cliff. Absolutely off a cliff. They finished at 18-16, 10-10 in the Big East. Villanova should never be 10-10 in the Big East. They once again missed the NCAA tournament, decided to keep Kyle Neptune. Some people don't like it. I know he's pretty loved around there in terms of the upper management. Maybe not by the fans. He's got to do something this year. But looking ahead, they returned potential All-American Eric Dixon. He was a double-double machine, can really score the ball. He's tremendous. The basically only bright spot of their offense last year. They also bring in Wooga Poplar from Miami and Jameer Brickus from LaSalle. Both proven commodities. You know the name Wooga Poplar. He played in the Final Four, a couple Elite Eights. He's a good player. Jameer Brickus, short guy, 5'10", 5'11", fast from LaSalle, proven player, really good player. This is a pretty decent roster. It is not a bad roster. Villanova fans are impatient quickly with Kyle Neptune, as they should be. You went from up here to down here very quick. If Neptune doesn't get to the NCAA tournament this year, I think it's a changing of the leaders. It's a decent team. He should be there with this roster. Their starting five looks like this, as mentioned at guards, Wooga Poplar and Jameer Brickus. Also at guard, Jordan Longino. At forward, Eric Dixon. And at center, Enoch Baoki. It's a good team. It's a good starting five. This is a talented starting five. Will they be able to get the job done? We'll see. Let's move on to our final team, Xavier. Out of all the teams in Division I last year, I think Xavier suffered the most from injury out of anyone. With all these injuries, Xavier was somewhat near the bubble, believe it or not, for the entire season. Their record didn't end up looking great. They missed the tournament. They were a 3 seed, as mentioned, 2 years ago. Last year, missed the tournament. I mean, just a rough year with injuries, specifically Zach Fremantle being out for the year, but they get him back this year. Everyone should be healthy to start. Hopefully they can stay healthy. He's finally back. He'll be a popular pick for first team All-Big East. Xavier also returns Davion McKnight and Jerome Hunter. They brought in Ryan Conwell from the transfer portal from Indiana State. Know the name, Xavier fans. Know the name Ryan Conwell. He is going to be spectacular. He is a just natural scorer. He was a huge, I know you think Ravi Avila. It was Ryan Conwell as well for that Indiana State team last year. And they also brought in Dante Maddox from Toledo. Remember Ray J. Dennis last year from Baylor? He came from Toledo. Dante Maddox kind of is in that similar realm, going from Toledo to Xavier, staying in state. Xavier is experienced, very talented. They should be back into the NCAA tournament this year with a team like this. This team is stacked. This team is really good. Not many people talking about it, Xavier. This team is really good. I expect to see them towards the top of the Big East. Starting lineup looks like this. As mentioned, all the guys already. Guards, Davion McKnight, Dante Maddox Jr., Ryan Conwell at forward, Jerome Hunter, and at forward/center, Zach Fremantle. That is it. That is all 11 teams. Quickly through there. Solid teams, great conference, great basketball conference, as we know. Now we're going to dive into some of our power rankings from those teams we just talked about. And then, of course, some of the odds to win the regular season. Let's dive into the power rankings.
Power rankings.
All right, at number 1, as mentioned, it is UConn's until it is not. UConn, the number 1 team in the Big East, according to me, at plus 125. Yes, only plus 125. That's ridiculous. To start a year, that just shows they are head and shoulders above everyone. Now, here's where things get a little bit spicy. First off, let me say the Big East, personally, is going to be my hottest take conference in terms of the power rankings. It's different than what a lot of people think. The most popular pick will be number 1, UConn, number 2, Creighton, number 3 would be Marquette, number 4 would be St. John's, number 5 would be Xavier. Now, I have those teams as the top 5. I just got them in different order. I have Xavier as number 2. I really like this roster. I saw pieces of it last year. I'm like, if this team was healthy, they'd be spectacular. We obviously saw it 2 years ago when they were a 3 seed. They made the Sweet 16. I think Xavier is going to be spectacular. They are plus 1,000 to win the Big East. At number 3, I do have Marquette. Marquette at plus 800 to win the Big East. At 4, I have St. John's at plus 500 to win the Big East. And at 5, I do have Creighton this low at plus 375. I'm not trying to hate on Creighton. I'm not saying they're not a tournament team. I think this league gets at least 5 bids this year. Last year they only had 3. Creighton, Marquette, and obviously UConn. I think this year they get at least 5 as a minimum. Maybe 6, maybe even 7. You never know. But I think Creighton, I'm just a little low. I'm obviously lower on them than most people. I'm just a little iffy on Pop Isaacs and just Stephen Ashworth in a bigger role. Not to hate, I think they're still a tournament team. I think they're going to be in there, but I got them at number 5 right now. At number 6, I do have Providence under Kim English at plus 2,000. Number 7, Villanova at plus 1,400. 8, Butler at plus 4,000. 9, Seton Hall at plus 1,400. That is not good odds whatsoever. Plus 1,400 for the third last. No thank you. At 10, Georgetown plus 10,000. Please do not think of betting them to win the conference. Please do not do that. And please don't even do this even further. At 11, DePaul plus 15,000. Please do not bet them to win the conference. You might as well just give me some money. It would be the same thing, except someone would benefit from it. Let's dive into the Preseason All Conference. Let's dive right into it.
It's time for the Bracket Science Preseason All Conference team.
Starting at guard, we have Kadari Richmond from St. John's. Also at guard, Cam Jones from Marquette. At forward, Alex Caraban from UConn. At forward, Eric Dixon from Villanova. And at center, Ryan Kalkbrenner from Creighton. With this being said, my player of the year is Ryan Kalkbrenner. I think Ryan Kalkbrenner at Creighton, just like I said, I'm not that high on the Pop Isaac, Stephen Ashworth. I think Ryan Kalkbrenner is set up for a tremendous year. He's won the Big East Defensive Player of the Year 3 times. This will be his 4th time. Like, he's probably going to do it again, right? The odds are there. 3 times. This should be 4th. He's tremendous on offense as well. I think it's Ryan Kalkbrenner's award this year, unless Cam Jones or Eric Dixon really pop off this year, because they're kind of put in those star roles this year. Now let's dive into some of Beej's best bets.
It's time for Beej's best bets.
All right, there's only one. We're not going to force it. Only one best bet. I have Xavier to win the Big East. The reason I say this, I know it might sound crazy. I'm saying it's all UConn until it's not. Yes, but one of these years it's probably not going to be, right? And I think Xavier at plus 1,000 is too good of odds to really give up on. We don't really know what to expect from UConn. Now, we obviously all trust Dan Hurley with our lives. He's a tremendous coach. But the roster could fall apart. You know, it's not the most talented roster in the world. If they just step down to the level of the field and even it out, I think Xavier could be right there and Xavier could sneak in and win it. Creighton at plus 375 is just not great odds. I love St. John's. I think St. John's has a great chance, but at plus 500, no. Marquette plus 800, I don't hate it. They lose a lot as well. I think Xavier's the best bet at plus 1,000. Of course, I'm never going to hate on anyone who ever bets UConn because they have just been absolutely spectacular. So do what you want. My best bet, Xavier to win the Big East plus 1,000. All right, let's go back to the trivia question at the beginning of the show. The question was, before UConn and Villanova, who was the last Big East team to win the national championship? I'll give you a second. Think about it. Remember, it's not from this. They're not in this conference anymore, so it's not one of those 11 teams we talked about. All right, another hint. It was in 2013. It was Louisville. Louisville. Remember the Russ Smith, Peyton Siva team? Yes, back in 2013. Louisville. That's who it was. All right, that is it for the show today. Next week is going to be the Big Ten. Then we'll move on to the Big 12, then the SEC, and then we're going to do a mid-major madness sort of show. Vote on the poll before you leave. Will Dan Hurley be a top 3 coach of all time if UConn wins the national title this year? No, it's hypothetical. Vote yes or no. Let me know what you think. Remember to like the video before you leave. Subscribe so you're staying updated. Click the post notifications. Follow us on social media at Bracket Science with 2 S's. Check out the website. Check out the links below. Go check it out. Everyone have a great rest of their week. Take care. Talk to you next week when we're talking about the Big Ten. See you later.